Off the grid living with Jason and Lexi. This is Jason. It's the 2nd of April. This is our temporary shed that we've built to practice building techniques, advanced framing, and other techniques, reuse of windows, reuse of decking material, reuse of plywood even. You can see the siding, or the subwall anyway, is a mosaic of different pieces that we got from a reuse store. Recycled door that was donated, stairs that were donated. The bathtub at some point will become, hopefully, a bathtub that we can use in abundant water times. Most of our water here, in the sequence of shelter, water, food, is caught off the roof. So this was a calving shed previously, and the previous owners had it for horses, and they watered the horses with the water that came off the roof. You'll see the gutter doesn't extend all the way to the ends, and we suspect to some extent that the reason being, you might not be able to see it, but at the far corner, that's where the birds like to sit, and when birds sit, they also shit. So if you catch water in from the edges, you're not catching bird shit. We've got one barrel open mouth that catches what comes out of the spout. We've had a number of times where we've spouted it right in. The wind is so intense up here that we've decided to disconnect that system because it keeps getting blown and ripped off. 3 collection barrels. Here's remnants of one of the previous sections that was ripped off. This one's kept about 80% full so that if it freezes solid, it won't crack. And whenever we catch an abundance in the open mouth, we siphon into close. We've got it on a bit of a pedestal so that we can siphon into containers for washing. Most of our daily hand washing we do in this bag. Let me take you inside. This is where we store food. This is an Engel brand AC/DC refrigerator freezer. You're able to do both on relatively low power draw. So we run it on a DC system mostly. It's connected directly to our battery bank underneath. So we manage the efficiency and simplicity. If something were to fail, the inverter were to fail, our refrigerator would still be able to run off of DC. We can also plug it into the truck when we drive to and from our space. This is primarily where we cook food. On this stove, we have a backup solar cooker. A propane stove, in the event that none of that's working on a cold, rainy day and don't have any firewood for emergencies. But most of our cooking is done here. Sometimes we need to open the door to do that. But we've got a number of ways to cook as well. Teapot, cast iron skillet, which is useful if you're cooking directly over a flame. And we try to maintain our firewood stocked continuously when we leave. So if we were to come up here and needed to be able to start a fire, we'd have that capability. We've also got some stored under the deck that typically we won't use unless we absolutely needed it. So we travel to gather firewood and keep the minimums here to sustain life. This was a salvaged cabinet set. We've just put a couple of large floor tiles here for prepping food. We've made a couple of cutting boards out of the side of vegetable oil containers. They're perfect for saving the blade of the knife, and they've also got a bit of a rounded edge for keeping food from falling off. So preparing food up here can be easy, comfortable, pleasant. More of our water management. Right now we transport a large amount of drinking water. We're able to drink straight out of our hand pump well that's a third of a mile over the hill, so it's a bit of an advantage to us to simply drive it in. We drive on a waste vegetable oil powered diesel Dodge, and she's got a pretty good cargo capacity. So here's where we store food. You would think this is a bit overkill, but we have critters here that very much want our food, and they've demonstrated that on at least one occasion, multiple occasions in fact, mice and bears. A bear broke into a trailer that we had used to live in previously, and that's what this space is meant to replace. So we've got this job site box, typically used for storing tools on a construction site, and we've covered over the holes with refrigerator magnets so that mice can't get in. So hopefully that's enough of a deterrent for both the mice and the bears, that all of our food is in a safe and contained space, that they won't associate this space with food. Some other dry goods we store in a pickle bucket that we salvaged from a hot dog restaurant that also doubles as our dining room table. And you can see our dining room table and chairs folded up against the wall there to manage our space. Right now that's our vanity mirror. We sleep on this futon couch cushion. The frame was salvaged roadside, and the mattress was given by a neighbor. Carpet was donated. A gentleman I know was redoing the carpet at a ski area, so if you happen to recognize the pattern and can tell us what ski area it came from, that'd be interesting. We're told it's wool with a jute backing. Lexi thinks the pattern is hideous, but I like that it's free. There's the leavings of one of our visitors. That's a common sight, but growing less common. For a while we were very hands-off, and eventually we resorted to someone that we allowed to stay, a few hunters in the cabin when we brought traps, and we found them to be tremendously effective. And so far these have been untripped for the several days that we've been here. So we think we've got the rodent situation under control, because we'd hate to sacrifice any more mousy lives. One of those control measures was the use of beer cans to plug up the holes in the back of the cabinet. There's a Coors, and you can see an Oscar Blues in the floor there, simply stapled. We're 25 miles from the closest town with any appreciable hardware store, so making use of what we have on hand is essential. This is another way we keep our space clean. This thing is a superstar. We're able to charge the DeWalt batteries on our solar charger through a single solar panel into a 400 watt inverter that we have backups of. You'll see 2 backup inverters there. All simple and small stuff. So when people raise the concern that cost is a consideration, probably the most expensive part of this project was the stove and the piping, around $2,000 I think for both. And then we also purchased the hearthstone. And when I purchased the hearthstone from a shop in Lyons, I asked him what he thought it would take, asked the gentleman what he thought it would take to install it, and he said 6 guys in a dolly, and I said, how about my wife and I? And he laughed, and there it is. I have no idea how much it weighs. I would guess probably about 300 pounds roughly, so his estimate was probably a bit of an exaggeration, but it may be more than that. It was pretty heavy to move in, and we just rocked it corner to corner from the porch out here. I won't go outside because part of our rodent mitigation is stuffing stuff under the door until we finish the floor. But this deck was sized for wheelchair access. In the event that we get people up here, we have the materials to finish what now is stairs. We have the ability to finish ADA approved, I don't know who does that approval, but ADA spec'd anyway, ramp that wraps around the side of the structure to the front. And you'll see that the main supports of this particular building are telephone poles. It's a pretty common building practice around here, so this thing sits up off the ground on stilts. And the subfloor is redwood that we got at extreme discount on the side of the road as well. Not free, but we bought about 6,000 pounds on a truckload for $500. And you can see some of that here. And some of the knots are ideally positioned, this wasn't planned, for running power equipment through. So for temporary use, we unplug this when we leave. We've got our DC-AC system coming up through the floor to run 2 20-watt halogen bulbs that were salvaged out of a dumpster on a touch switch. We also run a light for our DeWalt system, which is great. The batteries serve as lighting, vacuuming, and then whatever power tools we use. We've got a grinder, we've got a drill, a circular saw, a reciprocating saw. So my recommendation to anyone trying to do something similar would be to commit to a system, whether it's Makita, DeWalt, Rigid, that has an abundance of accessory systems that you can use. I know that Makita, for example, has like a leaf blower you can get with an 18-volt battery. So that makes interchange really nice. And interoperability and simplicity has so far been the key to our success. We've been coming up here for about 5 years. I'm showing these corners just to further illustrate some of the rodent mitigation. This is flashing, not beer cans that we just feathered to close gaps. Apparently they can squeeze through about an 1/8-inch gap, the mice. And well, we don't hate mice. They poop in places that we don't like. This is our emergency storage of firewood. It'll remain under the deck here until we decide to burn it because we're going to replace it, or we need it for an emergency. This is an overhanging deck. At some point we may put a support there. But these huge, I think 2x12 redwood members that we bought on that roadside find were just too beautiful to break up, so we extended them off the corner for the decks. That one is supported, kind of. You can see it floating up off the ground, I think because of erosion. Here's our single solar panel. Our whole operation was built off of this one panel. So people saying that building operations require a generator. My dad, a contractor for a construction company, has insisted numerous times that we take a generator. We have one that I've converted to run on waste vegetable oil, but it wasn't used for building any of this project. All of it was done with hand tools, but mostly, so you don't think we're some sort of epic pioneers, mostly done with the battery-powered DeWalt system. So again, that system of electric tools and battery technology these days is so reliable and easy to use that can make living out here in a space like this rather pleasant and delightful. We enjoy coming out here tremendously. And this is a bit of the backdrop. We also have a shed on our space where we store our tools. Some of them. Theft and vandalism are a minimal concern. We certainly lock things, but we also plan with redundancy so that there's not one thing that will take us down or make life here uninhabitable or unsustainable. So we still live in the city. We come out here every couple of months to continue to refine our systems and improve our living situation. I don't know that living entirely out here is possible. Our neighbors that live up on the corner there have been living out here year-round and are probably #1 in terms of eco-ethic of the people we know. However, they acknowledge too that they use a lot of gas to get in and out of town. And we're at about 9,300 feet, so when it snows, the roads can be impassable. This is our front entryway. That door was bought salvage, as was the lock set. Someone's willing to invest the time to sift through some of the hardware at places like Resource in Boulder, Fort Collins, Longmont, I think they have a store now. Then some wonderful stuff can be found. We're storing the rest of our lumber underneath the structure. We don't have a plan for building with it now, but it's essential to keep materials protected. Some of the more warped and ugly wood that we weren't as concerned about, we've still got up on railroad ties, and we're storing here. But as you can see, weather will destroy this stuff rather quickly. Life up here isn't necessarily more hard or more easy. It's just different, and we've had to adapt living situations for that. People may ask where we go to the bathroom. When we pee a perimeter that communicates to the critters in the area. We're here. They understand that boundary. They don't understand fences. So whenever you're here, we typically mark our territory. And then for summertime, in that facility over there, we have a toilet with a gravity feed system that we run rainwater or well water through. In the winter, we limit our use up here in the size of group. We've had a 4-person group with a dog, and the waste management became too much. The dog was tracking human waste back to the camp or to the living area here because it got excited in finding it. But 2 people coming up here every couple of months, we simply leave our solid waste on the surface and between the sun and the critters. Most of the time when we come back, it's completely gone. There's no trace of it. I have practiced the leave no trace ethic of digging a hole, and my experiment on our property was that even in digging a hole, the biodegradation was slower than simply leaving it on the surface. And I believe the leave no trace ethic because my understanding is that Knowles, for example, allows people above tree line, and it was our practice to some extent in Outward Bound, if we couldn't dig a hole, to leave solid waste on the surface. Those ethics largely come out of a concern for other human traffic and human considerations. People walking through the woods don't want to see your poo, in other words. But as we live here on this 40 acres, we believe that it could sustain the 2 of us pooping a perimeter, if you will, indefinitely, as the sun is rather intense, and even these little scat balls will attest. Doesn't take long for the stuff out here to degrade on the surface. We're also aware that digging a cat hole is behavior from a domesticated cat that's relinquishing its boundary to whoever the dominant character in the household is. That's typically the people cleaning out the litter box or the homeowners. And for our case, we want to make it clear to the coyotes and bears, nope, we live here, this is our space. Here's our battery bank, real simple, waterproof, and connected to the solar panel. So batteries will continue to charge while we're gone. Anything out here needs to be bomb-proof. We've mounted it with stakes through the ground, a rather stout wood frame, because the cows can and will scratch against it, and then a hinge in the event that we want to change the angle for summer, but that probably won't be an issue, or at least hasn't been previously. So that's our space. Thanks for taking a walk around it.
This is us cooking tacos, fingers crossed, on our wood burning stove. There's our skillet, which is pretty darn awesome. And this is our monster of a wood burning stove. She is an absolute beaut. So most things in this cabin, apart from the wood burning stove, are temporary for now. This is our kitchen space. and if you see in the back right corner, that is our 4-burner natural gas powered. So we don't use it that often because it's natural gas powered. There's our compost bin, because we still compost while we're up here, and then we bring it back to our home in the city or outside the city, and put it in our composter back there. This is our little setup for our dinner table with chairs and everything, and my husband's bringing over a light. Thank you very much. How are you feeling today?
Today, generally, I feel good. I felt successful in putting the windows in. We've worked together really well. Feel good about the way the truck's running and the state of our tools in this space. Super bummed about not being able to find a place to launch the trike, but c'est la vie. Maybe it just means there's an opportunity for a breakthrough someplace else or at some point, because I've been pretty persistent about it. But generally, yeah, I feel good about today.
Good.
And love our space. This is fantastic. It was intended to replace the trailer and be able to do all the things that we could in the trailer. And the advantage is, in addition to what we could do in the trailer, we've got a whole lot more room, so we're not constantly bumping into each other. And we've got a wood-burning stove. Yeah, and it's comfortable. It's comfortable. Still got some mice that are getting in somehow. But they didn't come in last night, which is awesome. We've killed a lot of mousers, and I'd like to stop doing that.
Yeah,
so
me
I feel
too.
good about the fact that none of our traps sprang yesterday
Or today.
all day today.
Oh.
So that's good. They're not getting in, because
Yep.
they were snapping fast, like within minutes of putting them out. So yeah, all of that is very positive stuff.
And I love the fact that we put in 3 windows out of our 5 in our creekside cabin.
All the windows you see here and down in the cabin are reused, donated, and
big
reused
ones.
from other projects.
They're
Doors
basically
came
floor
from a
to
friend, the windows
ceiling.
came from a project in Denver, and we've been taking them apart. There's 6 individual components, so here they're all bound together in one setup, but over in the cabin we've pieced them out into individual, and they're just beautiful. They're great windows, double pane,
And,
swing open.
and then you should be able to see above the drywall there, that I haven't finished yet, is our blown in insulation. And we have it throughout the walls and also up in the ceiling. So the walls and the ceiling are really well insulated. We don't have an insulated floor as yet, and we don't have a permanent floor at the moment, which hopefully we will be rectifying soon. Right now we have donated 1970s wool carpet, wool, which is great, pattern obnoxious, but it's definitely functioning. And then we have the black rubber tiles, which seems to work really well. So alright, well, this is our space. We might take you down to the cabin tomorrow. And and we have only one window on the north side, and that was very intentional to prevent, prevent
Weather,
yeah,
comes
cold.
from the north, so we're trying to maximize solar gain from the east, south, and west with large windows, and minimize thermal losses on the north side.
Yeah,
So if you were to look outside with the camera, you could see all the snow gathered out on the north side. It's the colder side out here. Coyotes.
Yeah, you hear the coyotes. And this is a bath that hopefully we will be turning into a very snug 2-person hot tub. So this land is just over the hill from Mission Wolf, which is a wonderful wolf refuge. And you can see in the distance there, so just over that saddle is the wolf refuge. And round about this time, round about 7 o'clock in the evening and 7 o'clock in the morning, you can often hear the wolves, especially if the wind blows in the right direction. So, okay, signing off, gonna go make some dinner. So these are our other structures. This is the shed that was already here when we bought the land. We use it for storing materials, things that we find, and our vegetable oil processing equipment and unit. And this is our waste vegetable oil run Dodge 2500 Beast, which we call Big Red. And you can see she's a relatively utility based truck, as she has the rack on the on the bed, and yeah, and those are the stairs that we built, or my husband built, and that is the trailer that has been here for about 4 years, and we only had a bear break in this past autumn, so fall of 2012. So yeah, these are the other structures that we have on our 40 acres, and we are at present on our way to go following this track right here up. As you can see the road going over the hill. We'll be going over there to our water well pump and taking our water sample for testing. This is our final structure, Creekside Cabin. So hopefully we'll come up with a little bit more of a magical or inventive name for it. So we have put in 3 windows this time, and we've got 2 more to go. As you can see on the left hand side, there isn't a window there, and the structure is all beetle-kill, local Colorado wood. It was a kit that we bought from a local lumber company. Where do we get the door from?
Resource in Colorado Springs. Okay,
Resource in Colorado Springs. So salvaged building materials, and the windows came, Jason's dad is a GC, a general contractor, and came off one of his projects. Flour mill lofts in Denver. They were going to be trash, and we claimed them. The creek, it runs through the whole of the back part of our property, and I've just seen, let's see if I can zoom in. Hold on. Zoom in, zoom in. If you can see it. Can you see it? No idea what you are just yet. Look, it's a turkey! Or some form of bird. Excuse the wobble. See another one? There we go. 3 of them. Going up into the national forest. They've probably heard me. Oops. Oh, there's another one. 2 more, 3. How cool is that?